Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another State of the Franchise episode with Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham, and we are going to bust some narratives about this game from the Ravens. Obviously, we know the outcome, but there's a lot more to the story that meets the eye. So, we're going to talk about that game, try to properly contextualize what we saw versus the Ravens, what it means moving forward, and the current state of the San Francisco 49ers. So, before we get into all that, you already know what to do. Drop your spicy sourdoughs in the chat. Smash the like button on both channels. And we got a good episode coming for you today. Let's get into it all right now. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now. We got all the spicy sourdoughs in the chat. What is good, gang? I know you guys are still trying to recover from the Christmas Day massacre. At least that's what it kind of felt like. But I think you're gonna enjoy this episode. I think you're going to enjoy what Jason's got to say, what I got to say. We both watched the tape. Jason also is about to drop a bunch of stuff on you. And I can't wait. I can't wait to get into it. But before we get into all that, let's do what we typically do, Jason. How are the vibes today? What's the vibe check on a Wednesday after the San Francisco 49ers got beat pretty handedly by the Ravens?
I mean, feeling good. Outside of sports, outside of the 49ers, feeling good. My daughter's on the mend. She feels a lot better. That was a little bit
Oh,
like
that's good.
hampering my Christmas and the time, but she's good. But taking a step back, watching the tape, looking at things, taking a breath, I think you guys are gonna find that you're gonna leave this episode far more confident than you ever did because the sky is not falling. And I intend to prove that with objectiveness, facts, and we're gonna unlock a new stage of spicy. And I think I named it before, Brad.
Yes.
Respectfully spicy, because there's not going to
Yes.
be any yelling, but I will be cooking. And this is going to be one for the books. I'm telling you right now.
We're taking a state of the franchise to a new level. You're going to get the respectful cook. Like we like to cook on here. We like to get spicy, especially with Jason's East Coast flavor brought to the mix. But I think we're going to have a nice, respectful cook today. And again, there's a lot of narratives that came out of this game, a lot of talking, a lot of yapping, a lot of what's blood blabbering about, like Micah Parsons, you name it.
What's
We got a
blood
lot of
blabbering
people
about?
given their opinions on the San Francisco 49ers
Mhm.
and, of course, Brock Purdy and everyone in between. But before we get into that, which is going to be a phenomenal, phenomenal part of this episode, hashtag let Jay cook 100%. Let's talk about some of the injuries, right? Because that is a big storyline to come out of this game against the Ravens. Just before we're hopping on here, Kyle Shanahan went to the podium and provided us with some injury updates on for a practice. Today's a walkthrough, I might add, but we do have some updates, and I'll go through them, Jason, and then I'll let you kind of give some feedback on them. So, players not practicing today. Jair Brown, which I think is kind of a surprise, he's dealing with a knee sprain. He won't be practicing today. Aaron Banks, obviously, we know he left the game with the toe injury. He's missed games this year due to a turf toe injury. So that is cause for concern. Eric Armstead still not practicing with a foot or knee. Jawan Jennings still in the concussion protocol, not practicing. And of course, Jalen Moore goes into the concussion protocol after the game with the Ravens. So let's start with the guys who aren't practicing. Tell me about your level of concern and kind of your thoughts with this initial injury report.
Well, thank goodness it's a walkthrough, but Jair Brown not being there, that's already a thin safety group right there. And I think
Right.
that's why the 49ers were proactive in bringing in Logan Ryan, and you need that sort of depth just in case. And I think the 49ers have shown themselves to be proactive, not reactive. That's why they continue to have guys step up out of nowhere. but that's not good. Like right off the bat, that's not good. That one concerns me the most, just because, again, Jair's young, but you don't want to see him go down and then have to force someone else in there. I'm sure the 49ers will be able to adjust, especially considering who's coming into town. It may not be the worst case scenario, but that doesn't make you feel good going into the next game, because we thought the 49ers relatively got out unscathed on top of, the Trent Williams stuff. But like, to hear that this came out of the game as well too, you just got to hope that he's getting ready and he'll be ready for Sunday. But if not, this might be the perfect week for him to take the week off because of how porous Washington is, especially with Jacoby Brissett starting.
Yeah. So obviously, Jair Brown was a bit of a surprise, and we want to see what's going to happen with the rest of the guys throughout the week. So it's going to be a big week for monitoring practice reports. But we did get some good news in regards to who is participating. These guys are participating in a limited fashion. Debo Samuel popped up on the injury with a neck. It doesn't sound like it's too serious, but we'll wait and see. Javon Hargrave, limited with the hamstring. So that just feels like a continuation over these last couple weeks. The biggest one, Jason, is Trent Williams limited with a groin, which means he was able to avoid a serious injury. Not going to lie, Jason, I was sweating a little bit when they said MRI. I'm like, oh no. Oh no, soft tissue injury. Big boys below the waist. That's a tough one, man. That's a tough one. They're carrying a lot of weight. Um, so it does sound like Trent Williams was able to escape the dreaded serious injury. Ambry Thomas pops up as a limited participant with the knee in hand. And Oren Burks is back at practice. Also, on top of this news, we find out Danny Gray is basically being brought up from the shadow realm, or excuse me, um, so his practice window has opened, so we might see Danny Gray potentially. I know the 49ers need a returner. They're trying to figure that out. Maybe that's where Danny Gray slots in. I don't know, but what do you think about the guys who are practicing and that whole situation?
If they're limited, then it's a great sign, especially Trent, right? Like if it was much more serious, we've seen him not practice all week and go. If he's already limited, then you're in a good spot already. Yeah, you very
Mhm.
optimistic. And the Javon Hargrave thing, that's going to be continuing, I think, all season. I doubt you see him practicing much. As long as he's ready for game day. By the way, watching him on the film, he actually looked really good. So that really helps. And Debo's gonna be fine, I think, as well, too. So, but I do think the Danny Gray thing is exactly what you said. It's got to be a punt returner. I do think that they need a little bit more juice there. Hopefully he can unlock that and contribute to the team a little bit, because one thing that we all know is if you're not going to make an impact as a receiver, whenever you get your shots, make it count. And that's how you get into the good graces of Kyle and using him. So
Yeah.
if he can return while Ray McLeod is down, and return some punts, maybe advance the ball a little bit more, get some good juice there, to put the offense in better spots, then yeah, I love that. So good. I mean, Danny Gray, good on you, man. This is your time to shine, and you got 2 weeks to get up on the field and show what you can do before the playoffs start.
Yep, and before we get into our main topic about the Ravens, obviously, we also had some roster moves. The
Yep.
biggest one being the San Francisco 49ers signing Sebastian Joseph Day, Chargers captain. They release him. What's your first kind of initial impression, your initial thoughts? Obviously, we just went through the injury report. We know they're thin on the interior. What do you think about this move? Was this a big one?
Yes, it is. I don't think you could have found a better defensive tackle lying around on the scrap heap than a former captain, Pro Bowl defensive tackle. How does this guy slip through the cracks? I mean, it at first glance, it's obvious that for someone to say, oh, well, that means Eric Armstead's not going to play. But at a second glance, is just sign good players regardless. Just sign really good players. And I mean, he was a captain for the Chargers, signed a 3-year deal, didn't work out. Obviously, that defense is not good. Shout out to Brandon Staley, but he was one of the casualties. And I mean, I don't think that there was a better move for them to make at this point, to fortify that middle group, even if Eric Armstead plays. Like it's just reinforcing what you have and reinforcing what you're good at in the trenches. I love this move. It's an A++ move. I mean, you couldn't have found a better player to add to this roster right now, to go into the stretch run and a playoff run.
Yeah, man. The Chargers signed Sebastian Joseph Day to a 3-year, $24 million contract. He had a $7.5 million signing bonus, $16.5 million guaranteed at signing, and so that's a pretty solid deal for a former 6th-round draft pick. And I don't know why they let him go, other than the fact that, like you alluded to, the Chargers are a dumpster fire. They fired their head coach, their general manager. They're waving the white flag. Maybe that was just a good gesture move of him coming like, man, I'm trying to win now. I'm
And
28.
save
I
some
don't
money.
have, yeah, and save some money. It's like, I don't have all this time. They save some cap space. They save on some future money, and he's able to go sign with a contender, and he signs with us. So that is going to be a big move. The San Francisco 49ers also made some additional roster moves. Obviously, they bring back Matt Pryor, who they released prior to the Ravens game, no pun intended,
Nice,
and
nice. No, that was good. That was good.
Jeremy McNichols is waived off the active roster in order to make room. They sign offensive lineman Sebastian Gutierrez and wide receiver Willie Snead to the practice squad. We already talked about Danny Gray, but again, the big needle mover is the defensive tackle. So that's a big get. So the San Francisco 49ers, obviously the biggest thing coming out of this game, or one of them, is health. Getting the guys back so that we can go on this playoff run. So we know what it is. Anything that you want to touch on regarding roster move, injuries, et cetera, before we get into the meat of this Ravens matchup?
I think there's a lot of optimism out of this, right? I mean, again, the only thing that can really slow the 49ers down is their own health. And obviously, Trent Williams not being there is going to be massive because we've seen, it's a lot of talk about that 3-game losing streak about, well, Debo wasn't there. Well, Trent Williams wasn't there as well, too. And this offense, this offensive line goes as he does, right? So when he's not playing well, then everything else collapses on itself just because you expect what you expect from Trent. He's that good. He's the best in the world. So him being limited is great. Just have optimism. Right now, all things considered, coming out of this game and hearing this injury news, you have to be optimistic at this point. Like that's the only way to look at this because it could have been far worse. And I think we were all expecting a little bit worse. I think many of us were looking at this and saying Trent's probably going to miss a game. He might miss 2 games, just get him ready for the playoffs. But if he can go, he should go because you do need to win this game. 1, 2, there is something to the idea of having rhythm, even though, you're on track to have a week off. Health is paramount, but if you come out rusty in the divisional game because you haven't played in 3 weeks, 1 quarter, 2 quarters, and you get back into the flow, and all of a sudden you're down like that. That's important too. So like, there's this fine line between resting and staying sharp that I don't envy. That the coaches and the organization have to make these decisions. I don't envy being in that position because there is a fine line of that, and everybody wants the bye week. But everybody wants the bye week and somehow staying sharp. And I think that's what Fred Warner was talking about on his show, Brad, where he was talking about the number 1 seed, and people were kind of twisting it to say, oh, well, they don't care about the number 1 seed anymore. He was talking about playing your best football going into the bye week. And that's what he meant was about, it's not that they don't care about the number 1 seed. It was about being sharp. And there's that fine line of when do you rest people and how do you stay sharp? I don't know what the answer is, and I'm glad that I don't have to make that decision. But I fear that no matter what Kyle Shanahan does, it's not going to be received like 100% well. There's going to be half the crowd saying, how could you play him? Why are you playing him? And then there's the other half like, well, I don't want him to get rusty. It's tough. It's really tough to gauge how you do that and how you keep your team sharp headed into a bye week, which should be for rest and preparation. But you do want to be playing your best football. That's what Fred was saying. He wasn't saying they don't care about the number 1 seed. Is you can have the number 1 seed and still not be playing your best football and get bounced in the divisional round was what he was talking about.
Just came through. The 49ers have released Ilm Manning from the
practice
squad. The homie.
Oh, no.
The homie.
Oh, no.
He's back on the streets.
Season's over, Brad.
Throw it away.
No,
but to your point, I wonder what the statistical backing is about teams who are getting hot heading into the playoffs, because I do think that is one thing that we look at a lot is how these teams are getting hot heading into the playoffs. Like, I think of that New York Giants teams that won the Super Bowl, and they won it twice. I think they were like 9-7, heading into the playoffs. And it's just about heating up at the right time, right? Like even like that Ravens team that won with Flacco, like they were kind of heating up at the end of the year, and then they just kind of he threw 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions throughout the playoffs. It's about heating up at the end of the year, right? So, does that lead you into like some concern with kind of the way the 49ers put up a dudder in a sense against the Ravens?
No. And we're going to explain why. We've got a lot of things to back up my statements here. This is not going to come from a place of emotion. It's going to come from a place of based on facts only. Because there's a few
Okay.
narratives out there that I really want to crush and stomp out. And I believe, but by the end of me speaking, you will absolutely understand where I'm coming from. Whether you agree or not is up to you. But I am absolutely about to back up everything that I said and everything that I've been seeing, including in our YouTube comments after the instant reaction and what you've been seeing on Twitter. I want to, I don't know if we're going to start now. You let me know.
Let's cook. Respectful,
All right.
cook, engaged.
Okay. I understand that emotions are high after a football game, right? People, you've been juiced for this game. During the game, you have your emotions. Probably been sipping some alcoholic beverages, right? Like during the game. Hey, I love that. But it's kind of instinctual for people to go to the things that you've heard, like buzzwords, game plan. Oh, duplicate what the Ravens did. Oh, now the blueprint's out. Oh, exposed. Those are the first few things that I want to make sure we knock down. Okay. Now, after watching the film, I got a very good idea and sense of what the Baltimore Ravens were able to do. Now, they were able to knock off some passes that ended up being in their hands, but that is also good on them because they have players that are around the ball and they have really good players. That's where I want to start this, Brett. This idea that people will be able to duplicate the Baltimore Ravens game plan. Well, let's dig into that a little bit. You can do whatever you think the Baltimore Ravens did in that game. You can do it. Go ahead. But you don't have the personnel to do what they did.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks it's just some magic thing that the Ravens came up with. The Ravens lift from this one, from that one. There's downs and distances that things have worked and you have like got the 49ers off the field that you can use. But it has to go hand in hand with your scheme and your personnel. So what does that mean, Brad? You can run whatever it is that you think that they ran. They disguise their coverages beautifully. And I remember watching on the first glance, there's literally a play where Patrick Queen is up where the strong safety is, up in the upper right quadrant, and he comes flying down and he's a free rusher. Do you think that any team could run something like that because it worked on that play? No, you need to have a linebacker as talented as Patrick Queen to be able to get down as fast as he can. What do the Ravens have? They have a great defensive line. They've got two of the best linebackers in the world. They've got a secondary that are ball hawks, and they get there, right? Okay. So they mixed up their coverages. That's what you watch on first glance. Mixing up the coverages, making sure that you have, like, even the one interception where the ball was batted in the air, the second interception for Purdy. The second interception is a phenomenal play by the cornerback who peels off of Deebo Samuel and makes a play. If he doesn't bat that down, Deebo catches that and he is gone with grass all over it. But you tip your cap. Why did that happen? Because he recognized, he drove, and he had a great play instinctually. Okay. So the Ravens did a great job of disguising their coverages, making sure that they got pressure up front, and they can do that with Ford, Jadeveon Clowney, Matabuke. They got guys. They got dudes. Go.
Matabuke, first
Yes.
time watching him, holy crap. I'm like,
Yep.
He kind of looks like Aaron Donald out here. I'm like,
Yep.
I was like 92 flashed all freaking game. I heard about him coming into it. After watching it, they're talking about paying him. I'm like, oh, I see why he's going to get paid. The dude's a freak. Like, everyone's focused on the edges. Nah, Matabuke is, whew, I was like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. I was not familiar with your game.
Yep. So look at it like this. Let's look at the NFC opponents, and let's just see if they want to duplicate whatever the Ravens did. Oh, we're just going to do what the Ravens did because now the book is out. It's over. You figured out the 49ers. It's done, right? They just disguise coverages, bat passes down, have pressure, and have great guys on the back end. Brad, if you could please pull up a chart which will absolutely highlight exactly what I'm talking about because this is going to be so good. Okay. Coverage predictability and efficiency from NFL defenses. Do you see who's at the top of that right-hand corner? Up the
Right hand
right-hand corner.
corner.
Mixes up coverages and has a good defense. The Baltimore Ravens.
Hmm.
Now, let's take a look at who else is in that quadrant. Oh, look. AFC team, AFC team, AFC team. And another AFC team that the 49ers actually beat, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, let's look at NFC opponents because they're only going to be in the other three, which is right now, nobody in this left-hand quadrant except for the LA Rams. Predictable coverage scheme, not a good defense. Predictable coverage scheme, right? Okay. Now let's look down in the right corner. Mixes up coverages. Philadelphia Eagles, who are a playoff team. The Detroit Lions, who are a playoff team. Now let's look in the left corner. You see the San Francisco 49ers. You see the Dallas Cowboys. Predictable coverage scheme, good defense. What does this mean, Brad Graham? What it means is this. If the Dallas Cowboys want to completely switch up everything that they've been doing all season to do what the Ravens did, I say do it. I say do it. You know why? Because you don't have linebackers like the Ravens have. You don't got guys on the back end like the Ravens have. You don't. And for you to do something all season and try to change that and get out of character, and to get out of character because you saw the Ravens do it, do it. Do it. Please do it. Because you will not be successful. You will not be successful. That is not how football works. That is not how football works. Sure, if you want to start disguising on a down or two here and there to mix it up, fine. But as soon as you start doing something that is out of your character and out of your personnel, you're going to get washed. And you know what else? The Baltimore Ravens didn't just discover something. All of these teams have tried that at certain times with the Niners, including Dallas, including the Eagles. But they don't got the dogs to do it. And the 49ers might be beat on one play, maybe two plays. But if you want to run that for 55, 60 plays, God help you. Okay? Mixes up coverages a lot, not a good defense. Why is that, Philadelphia Eagles? Because your back end is sus. And you don't have the back end like the Ravens do to cover. So do what you've been doing. Mix up your coverages. Go for it. That's your scheme. But you're not a good defense. Right at the bottom, Los Angeles Rams. Predictable coverage scheme, not a good defense. Los Angeles Rams, you can try it and switch it up here and there. Regardless, not a good defense. Brad Graham, do you understand what I'm trying to say right now? The idea that every single one of these NFC teams now is going to look at what the Baltimore Ravens said, and you know what? No matter what we've been doing all season, no matter what we've done, no matter what we're good at, no matter what our personnel is good at, you know what? Let's just duplicate exactly what the Ravens have done. It's nonsense. It doesn't make sense. And I want you guys to understand that it's not as easy as all that. It sounds easy to say. It's something that's very reactionary. But in the grand scheme of things, personnel, scheme have to match. And you cannot just go ahead and say we're going to run what Baltimore does because you don't have the dogs to do it. And if you want to change up everything that you've done and make yourself look a little bit different, there are answers for all of that. That is the difference. Don't conflate what happened with the Ravens to some sort of exposing. Give credit to the Ravens because they have the personnel and scheme to dictate it. None of these other NFC teams can do it. And if they coulda, they woulda, but they didn't. I want to stop this, and I want it to stop right now. Don't get in my YouTube comments saying that they left the game plan. They did not. They executed. That's what they did. And they got a few lucky bounces. Dallas can't do it. The Rams can't do it. The Eagles can't do it. The Lions can't do it. Green Bay, Seattle, none of them can do it. It was a one-time thing, and you need to objectively look at this game as a one-off and say the Baltimore Ravens were better on Monday. That is all. There's no breadcrumbs. There's no game plan. Nobody else can duplicate this. I'm done, Brad.
That's what you call a respectful cook right there, because that was just nothing but facts. And to kind of piggyback onto your everything that you're talking about, you're 100% correct. It's like when you look at Kyle Hamilton right now looks like the best safety in the league. The range that this dude can move and play on every spot of on that grass. And on top of that, he has immense length. Like there's not a longer safety in the game than Kyle Hamilton right now. He can play, he can literally come and rush off the passer. He can play linebacker. He can play safety. He probably play corner if he wanted to. He's probably one of the most versatile players in the game. And when you have that guy on your back end, you've got two of arguably, right there in the same category in regards to athleticism with Fred and Dre. And then you've got Marlon on the outside who played really well. That other guy, number 21, I think Stevenson was his name.
Stevens. He's the one who
Stevens,
peeled off of
he
Debo,
peeled,
and it
made
was
a
a big risk
hell of a
reward
play,
play. It's a risk
hell of a
reward
play.
play though, because if the ball gets by him and Debo gets it, that's a 30-40 yard gain, but it doesn't. The result changed, right? Like that's the difference.
And then again, too, it's like you can go and do all of these things that the Ravens did, but are you going to get three? I'm just going to say it what it is. It's not an excuse. They got 3 lucky interceptions.
Yeah.
Not they created their own luck, I should say.
Correct.
I'm
You
not going to
create your own
take it
luck.
away from them.
Nope.
But we also know the ball bounced their way at the same
Yep.
time, like the Stevenson one. Brock saw it. You see him peek over. He sees him coming. He doesn't execute the full fake, and he has to come off early. And Stevenson plants his feet instead of running, and he anticipates the throw. He anticipated the whole thing. He knew what was coming. So he was ready for it, and he jumps straight in the passing lane, and he bats the ball, and there's Marlon Humphrey, just like in the backfield waiting for it. Like, how often is that going to happen? That, like, you can duplicate the peel action, but the whole operation of it getting deflected and then caught by another defender that just happens to be in the backfield, not going to happen all the time. Same thing with the one where Brock Purdy's scrambling around, scramble drill, throws across his body to George Kittle. Marlon again makes another great play, sticks his hand in there. But Kyle Hamilton comes up with the pick. Rewind that 5 seconds ago. He has 330 pounds on his back as he's face planted into the turf. Like, that play, I think, epitomizes the way the ball bounced in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not taking away from the Ravens. Like, that's
Nope.
not at all. And I think what you were talking about by showing that chart is like the 49ers just played one of the best, if not the best defense in the league. And not only did they play a phenomenal game, but the ball also bounced their way because they put themselves in position for that ball to bounce their way. I think there's a way to look at it, right? It's like it wasn't all luck. Luck favors the prepared, and they were prepared, and they made the plays, and it tipped into their scale. And so the takeaway from this is, and when I went back and I watched the tape, I saw the 49ers making plays in between the crazy situations that were happening. But I also saw a situation where the 49ers were down 16-12 at half. They get the ball out of halftime. They go 3 and out. Ravens score, first play back, interception. Momentum's gone. And they had already thrown three interceptions. And again, brought up the quicksand reference from the replacements. That's what it felt like. They were just trying, and they just were sinking. And it was just one of those games. Now, credit the Ravens, but also I agree with you. This narrative that the 49ers offense got exposed, Brock got exposed, frauds, all this stuff. I'm just like, nah, it just wasn't our day. Wasn't our game. The first interception that Brock threw, not a good interception.
No.
That's on Brock. He's got to see that. That's very I would say not
Brock
typical of Brock. And everything else was just fluky. But again, credit to the Ravens. They put themselves in that position. They made plays. But the narrative that even the run game narrative thing, and I'm a big run first guy. I'm like, I don't know if I believe it. I really don't, because they were busting off some big chunk runs. They just couldn't build drives and build momentum, and they kept getting out of it, and which meant they couldn't get into their scheme. They were doing things out of whack. The whole thing was out of whack, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then to a little bit more to that play with Stevens, I don't think that was something where Stevens was coming off of the corner on purpose. I think that was instinctual. I think he decided to try to make a play, and he did, because if you see Debo Samuel, that throw right there, he's got 30 or 40 yards in front of him before the first guy's ready to come back to him on the safety. So again, tip your cap, move on, right? Again, the Baltimore Ravens were the better team on Monday.
They
But
were.
this idea of, oh, everyone's going to duplicate the Ravens game plan, if they could, they would, but they can't because they are that good. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. Now, if you have to face them again, the next time you'll face them is in the Super Bowl. And you can bet your ass that Kyle Shanahan and them are going to look at this tape. They'll have an extra week to prepare, and they will be better prepared. And then take away the tip passes, the interceptions, right? Perhaps you find a new way to block, right? Like there were a lot of free rushes in this game, right? But you have to make sure that you understand, contextualize. One game. There is no way that other teams are going to be able to duplicate what the Ravens have done because other teams have tried at various points. But you realize that your personnel does not match your scheme. It's like the people that are like, "Oh, Mike McDaniel's offense is incredible." Yeah, well, it kind of helps to have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. If he had Devontae Parker and Juju Smith-Schuster, you think that they'd be able to be hitting long passes down the field? It's not all about that. It's about being able to dictate your personnel to the scheme and vice versa. So anybody who believes that these teams that have been running exactly what they've been running all season, and at various times they'll switch it up and they'll have different coverages and disguise that. If you think that they're going to overhaul everything that they've done all season based on their personnel, based on what Dan Quinn has been teaching the Cowboys, right? Based on what Matt Patricia is now the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, which goes to show you how much they believe in their defense. Like hiring another defensive coordinator in the middle of the season is mad and scrambling. If you believe that any of these teams are going to overhaul what they've done and all of a sudden just look at this Ravens game like, oh, there's the light bulb. Other teams have tried. If they coulda, they woulda, they didn't. I don't want to talk about it anymore because it doesn't make sense logically. There's just no rhyme or reason to believe that anyone can duplicate what the Ravens have done. For me, that does a disservice to you saying that the Ravens are not like that, and they are indeed like that. They have a great team. That's why they won that game. And to Brad's point about the tip passes, players make plays. Like if you get your hands up and the ball's in their hands, that's what you do, right? Like you can look at that and say those are unlucky bounces, but you create that luck by being in the right place, by getting your hands up. And that's the reason that they teach you, if you can't get to the quarterback, get your hands up, because you want to create those sort of plays. They are an incredibly well-coached team. They have great personnel. They have it at all three levels. That's why the Ravens are so dangerous. So I don't want to hear this because I don't think anybody else in the defense on the NFC can do what the Ravens have done. And if they try, then they're overhauling everything they've done all season, which doesn't make any sense in my opinion.
The only pick that I think another team could actually duplicate, because I think the first one was on Brock. The second one was a great play by the cornerback. The third one, again, tip drill, just ball didn't bounce their way. Two didn't bounce their way. The fourth one, it was Colton McKivitz getting beat to the inside with the inside pass rush. And then
he had a bad game, Brad.
He had a really terrible game.
Yeah,
and then getting hit while throwing. Like you can duplicate that. You can duplicate hitting the quarterback while throwing. That's something that's man on man. That's not scheme. I mean, it could be scheme if you're trying to scheme up Colton McKivitz on an island, but theoretically, that's man on man play, and they won. They won with their man versus ours, and they hit Brock, and Brock, as a result, gets hit, ball flutters, interception. And again, the compounding effect, Trent gets hurt on that play. Like, that's the kind of game it was. It was just this weird game. Weird game from the very beginning. So that's why, too, like you're talking about other defenses trying to duplicate the Ravens and what they did. How do you duplicate such a weird game? Like, that's the point. It's like, yes, the Ravens played very good. They proved to me that they're probably the best defense in the league. But the 49ers still found ways to attack that defense.
And they had guys open. Like, the plays were there. They weren't clamped.
They found running lanes. They just couldn't get into what they wanted to do because they would either have drops, 100 yards and penalties. Dude, that was a recipe of facing a formidable opponent and shooting yourself in the foot at the same time. Like, 100%. That's what you're going to get. it wasn't typical of what we've seen of the 49ers. So that's why, like, after getting into the tape, obviously watching it felt terrible. Like, it just felt awful. The whole thing, the momentum, all of it. And we found ourselves, at least I found myself, talking a lot in the post game about the momentum. That's what I was
Yeah.
talking about. I was like,
Yeah.
it's just a weird, fluky situation. Now, credit to the Ravens, but even getting into the tape, it just speaks to that. Getting into the stats, it speaks to that. It was just a weird game. How do you expose something that's an outlier that
Right.
it probably isn't going to be repeated as long as the San
Yeah.
Francisco 49ers are on their P's and Q's?
You know, Brad, I think a little bit more to the momentum. If the 49ers score on that opening drive, like they were moving the ball fine. They get these
Changes the
chunk plays,
game.
right?
Changes
Yeah,
the
like
game.
again, back-breaking interception, and then a weird thing happens. The referee trips Lamar Jackson. This game felt weird from the outset, right? And
Yeah.
again, we're not taking anything away from the Ravens, but I just want everybody to contextualize this game as a one-game sample size.
Yeah.
Brad, to that point, I did a little research as well too. So let's bust one more narrative.
Okay.
Did a little research too. I did a little research on Super Bowl winners and some of the games that they lost, and they still found a way to win the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Let's start. The 16-17 Patriots lost to the Buffalo Bills 16-0. They didn't score a point against the Buffalo Bills. Season's over, right? Nope, they won a Super Bowl. Okay. The 18-19 Patriots lost to the Matt Patricia-led Lions 26-10, and they lost to the Tennessee Titans 34-10. Season's over, right?
34 to
Oh, no.
10. Wow.
34-10. Season's over, right? Oh, no. They won a Super Bowl. The big bad 1920 Chiefs, the invincible Chiefs, can't be beat, lost back-to-back games at home to the Indianapolis Colts, who I believe were led by Jacoby Brissett in that game, if I'm not mistaken, and the Houston Texans at home at Arrowhead. Went on to win the Super Bowl. Sorry, 49 fans didn't want to bring that one up, but it's absolutely true. The 2021 Bucks lost to the 2020 Bucks lost to the New Orleans Saints 38-3. The New Orleans Saints, 38-3, went on to win the Super Bowl. Guys, there are Super Bowl winners that have had horrible, horrible losses. But you know what? The 49ers, what's different from all of these other teams? The 49ers had this loss against probably the best team in the AFC. Completely different. If this is sort of loss that you have when you face, I don't know, let's say they lost to the Vikings in this fashion and they were all healthy. I think that's more alarming than what happened in this game, which was weird. But I just went through all of these Super Bowl winners, and none of these teams were on that team's level. Those games are weird, but it doesn't mean it's over. So there are Super Bowl winner after Super Bowl winner that have had games like this. One more thing, Brad. Before the season started, we had 17 games to pick a record prediction, right? A record prediction. Right
Yes.
now, if the San Francisco 49ers finish the last two games, they will finish at 13-4. How many people believe that the 49ers were going to be 13-4? I feel like that was the most popular bet, the most popular prediction. So why does 13-4 now seem like it's worse than when everyone predicted it looking at the schedule? It's the 3 losses, which I think are to the teams that I think are like a little bit concerning for people. And then this one, but essentially 13-4 is 13-4. And it doesn't matter how you get there. For me, guys, this is a one-game thing. And there have been multiple Super Bowl winners. Look at all these teams. And I could have went further back. Like, I could have went all the way back. But look at all these teams and who they lost to. The 18-19 Patriots lost to Matt Patricia's Lions. 26-10. Season's over, right? It's all done. This is not indicative of the team that's going to be playing football in January. This is a one-game sample size. So why am I telling you this and showing you about the coverages and the defense? Because I want you all to relax. Please, relax. It's a one-game sample size. It didn't feel good on Monday. I hear you. Today's Wednesday. Let's properly look at this and let's calm down. Relax. Everything's going to be fine, especially now that we've got this injury news. I don't think the Washington Commanders looked at what Baltimore did and said, oh, we got them now. Here we go. They were down like 28-0 to the Jets last week. They are a mess. This is not something that is going to be continual. So you have to look at this game as a 1 game sample size. I hope that you guys are relaxed because I'm chilling. I feel fine. And I think you guys should. I don't think you should be as scared as you are.
No, I agree. That was extremely well said. I mean, when you talk about hashtag respectfully cooked, you're doing a phenomenal job. It because like, what is there really to freak out about if we are being truthfully honest? Like, we went through it all. We both of us have watched the tape back. You've pulled a ton of statistical references and even past references, and we understand it's the NFL, man. There's a reason the term "any given Sunday" exists. It's because that's, and you go back to, I think it was what, Herm Edwards. That's why you play the game, or whatever. It's like, you don't play this game on paper. Like, you got to go up, you got to strap it, you got to put the chin strap on, and you got to go hit the other dude in the mouth who's lined up across from you. And if you don't, it's going to happen to you. And the San Francisco 49ers, again, it was just a weird one. I don't have like any other great adjectives other than it's just a weird game. It was a weird game. I don't think it's indicative of what they've done in the past. Like, I would say, like, in the point that you brought up, I would say that the game, like, against the Minnesota Vikings, was a more concerning game than this one.
Yeah.
And because the Vikings are an inferior opponent, and they just were out of sorts, and they just weren't doing what they needed to do. Within this game, you could see that there was glimpses of them being able to find success, but it kept getting derailed by penalties, turnovers, drop balls, 3 and outs. Like, it just compounded. And so at the end of the day, it just kind of spiraled on them. So I agree. Like, I understand if you're upset about the game and the outcome of the game. I've seen a lot of people, like, in my comments, be like, "Oh, they ruined my Christmas," and whatever. I mean,
I
I
hope
can
not.
understand the pain because we are fanatics. We're emotionally invested in this team and their success. They have success. We're at a high. They lose. We're at a low. We ride and vibe with the team. So I understand that. But I think what we're trying to present to everyone is that isn't who this team is. Like,
Yep.
yes, that team, that what we saw on Christmas was not good in a lot of different ways and for a lot of different reasons. But I didn't come away from that game like, damn, I'm worried about Brock. Like, I came out of Cleveland that game like, ooh, I really need to see him against Minnesota to be able to, like, confirm that what happened in that second half against the Browns was an outlier. And guess what? He proved it was an outlier. The 49ers are going to do the same thing here. They're going to prove that this game was an outlier, and they're going to continue to do what they do, get back on their grind, and I think continue to win out as they
Yeah.
get ready for the playoffs and secure that 1 seed. So the overarching theme is, it's like, I understand you're upset. I
Yep.
understand it came on Christmas and the hype and the MVP, and like, this was the most hyped game in recent memory.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the 49ers fell flat on their face, and you're embarrassed. You
Yeah.
have secondhand embarrassment. You're getting chirped by all your buddies. All your buddies that are on opposite teams are texting you, telling your team's bums, they're frauds. You're hearing it from media, all the people who've been waiting, posting receipts.
Yep.
So, and we knew that was coming. So,
Mm-hmm.
as it stands right now, just be patient, put your head down. If that's how you vibe with this team, then understand that it's just chill a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and wait for them to get back after they get that next win. This game will be behind us,
Yep.
and we'll be getting ready for the playoffs. So
Yep.
I do think I'm actually okay with the MVP talk kind of dying a little
Thank
bit.
God. Thank God.
Just like, it's always fun to have someone and to be able to, and of course CMC's still in it. But I think for Brock and I think for this team, like, they play better with chips on their shoulders. That's just how they've always been. And
Yep.
I think they now have a massive chip on. I mean, you got Debo Samuel calling out Cam Newton and Micah Parsons. He's been good all year. Hasn't said a word. Like, even when the Eagles came up, he's like, I said what I said. I'm not apologizing for it. I don't regret it, but I'm not adding to it. He's pissed this morning. And
Yep.
honestly, good. Yes, be pissed, Be
Mhm.
embarrassed. Be angry that that's what you put out in front of the whole world to see. And now let's get back to work. I think this team is built the right way. I think they'll be
Yeah.
able to manage this. I think they'll be all right.
Yep, they win the next 2, they get the bye week, nobody remembers this game, it's on to the playoffs, and you still believe that the 49ers are the best team in the NFC with a shot to be in Las Vegas. I think don't
Yeah,
lose sight of that, and don't allow this one game to cloud your judgment. Don't let people drag you down, with that argument. The Cowboys aren't better, the Eagles aren't better, it's just those are the facts. Now, Baltimore, if you wanna say that is better, that's up to you, but you will only see them in February, and by that time, I'm sure it's not like Kyle Shanahan's going to say, "Well, we got no shot. I don't know what we're going to do." The
yeah,
answers,
pack it up, guys.
well, pack it up, guys. The NFC Championship was cool. No, no, no. Like the plays were there. You got to execute. You realize that you have to play better. You have to play more discipline. And I think that's just an easy way to look at it. Like if you wanted us to come on here or after the instant reaction and lose our minds and make grand sweeping statements, I don't think you know who Brad and I are. And we're always going to. I mean, it may come off as blind optimism from some people, like but we kept it real. We said the Ravens were better. They played better. They had a better executed game plan. I think all that's true. But there's no reason to make any grand sweeping statements about this team, especially if the next time they face Baltimore is going to be in February. And in that game, anything can happen. And again, Kyle Shanahan's not going to look at that game and say, "Well, they kicked our tail pretty good. I don't think we can do anything about it." No, the plays are there. They're there. But just remember, nobody in the NFC can stop this team. And that's all you need to know. So then bring it on in February. Let's do it again. Let's run it back. And there's things on tape that they can find. And I doubt that the ball is going to keep bouncing that way because it's just law of averages. It just does not happen that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I like this little positive note. Oh, not that one. Peter says, daughter gave
Wow.
me a CMC jersey.
Hell yeah,
That's
Peter.
dope. Love that.
Hell
Let's
yeah.
get into some super chats. We got some
Cool.
super chats stacking up. So let's get to them. If you guys have any, get them in now. Let's start out at the very top and we'll work our way through. Thank you guys for being patient. Niners Drag says, when healthy, guys, give me your ideal offensive lineup.
Can I go
O-line
first?
lineup. Go for it.
Okay. Trent Williams at left tackle, Trent Williams at right guard, Trent Williams at center, Trent Williams at right. No, no, no. How do we duplicate Trent Williams 5 times over? No.
My ideal offensive line: Trent Williams at left tackle, Mike Ayupati at left guard.
Yep.
Get
Keep
me
going.
give me Alex Mack at center. Give
Yep.
me Alex Boone at right guard. Give me Joe
Hell
Staley
yeah.
at right tackle. 49ers Super
Boom.
Bowl. Lock it in.
Super Bowl one. No. Williams, Banks, Brendel, Feliciano, and unfortunately, right now, I mean, not unfortunately, it's just he had a very poor game. It was evident on tape. McKivitz, like that's got to be your ideal lineup right now. I mean, the Jalen Moore thing, I know it's been discussed, even though he's a concussion protocol, but like Brad and I discussed, it's not like Madden. You can't flip them left to right, even though they're trying. Like it's not something that you want to do right there. And I don't think it's fair to Jalen Moore to put him out there and put him in that situation when it's that hard to flip. So yeah, so give me Williams, Banks, Brendel, Feliciano, and McKivitz.
Yeah, and I mean, even with McKivitz struggling on the right, they flipped him over to the left, and the struggles like took up another notch. Like that,
Yeah.
again, that just shows you how difficult it is to switch sides. So
And he's played left tackle.
and
And
he
he's
switched sides
played
all
left
the
tackle.
time.
Yeah.
Like you go to
Yeah.
training camp, right? He's either on the
Yeah.
left or the right every
Yeah.
other series. Like
Yeah.
he's the guy that's moving left and right all the time, and he even struggled going
Yeah.
from right to left. I mean, you had Spencer Burford at right tackle. I mean, what a
It was a
terrible
mess.
situation for Burford, man. Again, Feliciano gets a start over him. He gets thrown in at tackle. We've been to the last 3 training camps. I've never seen Spencer Burford play right tackle in training
No.
camp, in preseason, or in a game.
Only in college.
He only played 2 seasons in college. He played 2 seasons at guard, and to be able to have to be thrown into that situation, that's tough, man.
Weird game, man. Let's just chalk it up to the
Yeah,
game.
for my ideal offensive line, obviously it's the same as Jason's. What's going to be really interesting is what's going to happen with Aaron Banks. If Aaron Banks can't go, you got to put Feliciano at left, and you got to put Spencer Burford at right, and that's
Yep.
just how it's got to be.
Yep.
So we'll see how that goes. Ben Barch came in. He looks serviceable. He only
looks
played a
fine.
handful of snaps.
Yeah.
Wasn't anything special, but he also, I don't think, really
He's a
got
veteran.
beat.
I mean, he's been in the league, so you can
Yeah.
at least say that.
Yep. and he was highly regarded. That's why the 49ers signed him. Forrester told the story, got a little inside tip from the former offensive lineman over there. He was like, man, take a look at this guy. And so they brought him in. So we'll see what the offensive line ultimately looks like in the end. But
I guess
that
the
is
question is, Brad.
the biggest
The,
concern.
que- the question is, Brad, can the Titans lend us Danny Brunskill?
Daddy B, come back
I
home.
mean, look, you guys don't need him. You're packed up. Just lend him on over, and we'll send him back after we win the bowl. Like,
Yeah,
can
just
we
cut
just
him.
use him for a little bit? As
No,
NFL commissioner, if I am elected, I will allow teams to lend players to the 49ers only. Vote for me in 2024.
rentals. How awesome would that be? We'll get a rental. Give us the rental. We'll give you a draft pick in return.
Yeah.
RG Teamster says props to the Ravens, but if we see them again, we ain't spotting them that many turnovers.
And I'm so glad you brought this up because the turnovers is a trickle down effect on the defense. The defense was on the field for 70 snaps. 70 snaps of trying to limit Lamar Jackson. And it's hard enough if you play a regular amount of snaps of 50. Imagine just adding that stress. And early on in this game when they were gifted those interceptions, the 49ers defense didn't fold. But when you're on the field that long, with a guy who's putting that much pressure on you, and you get to that 70 snap mark, it is hard. It is hard to continue to contain him and the stress that he puts on defenses. That is another thing. The trickle down effect from the turnovers falls down onto the defense. The defense was bending, not breaking, but then the levee breaks when you have to continue to be on the field to keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket and stop them from making plays. Also, one player that really stuck out on the tape. My goodness, Zay Flowers is a hooper. He is great, man.
Baller.
He's great at manipulating his speed and running that comeback route. He is so refined as a young route runner. It's impressive. The Ravens continue to build great rosters. That's it. I just want to make sure that we give the Ravens our just due. But I also want to let everybody know that this is a one-off, and you will have to see them again in February if that's the case. But it doesn't mean that everybody else can do this. Zay Flowers was literally ran one of those routes where he's running full speed, stops on a dime, turns around, and he's got 5 yards of separation. The ball's right on his chest. That's a great player right there, man. The Ravens are good. That's it. Like, that's all you have to say is the Ravens are good. Doesn't mean the 49ers are bad. Just means they were better that day.
They're kind of like the East Coast. They're like the East Coast 49ers, but they've been doing it
Yeah.
longer. And
they got a quarterback like that really
they've
puts
had a
stress
head
with his
coach
legs.
for beyond a decade. Their general manager is, from my understanding, higher within because Ozzie Newsome retired.
Yep.
So there's a ton of continuity within the building, within the organization. They have Lamar Jackson at quarterback, phenomenal offensive line. They know how to draft. They know how to find gems. That's why they go out and trade for Roquan Smith. Like, bro, like they're good. They're the 49ers of the East, but they've actually been doing it longer and more consistently than the 49ers have. That's why it's such a good matchup. So the hope is hopefully we'll see them again. Honestly, I would love to see them in the Super Bowl.
Yep. Run it back.
I would love to run it back. We know these 49ers, man. We know that they have this taste in their mouth like they didn't do what
They want
wanted
to see them
do.
again. They want them again.
They left meat on the bone, as they say. I hear them say that all the time. And they want to keep feasting. They aren't satisfied. Let's see what else we got. Jay Jurdy, 100% faith. Still have to talk about Kyle when trailing in the fourth quarter. He needs to turn that narrative around. Better play calls, maybe. I want to get your thoughts on this because I have a lot of thoughts on this. So, what do you think about this?
Well, nobody has a really good record, trailing by 8 in the fourth quarter. Now, those coaches have wins, but this one I can't bust. This narrative I cannot bust. It seems to be something where when the 49ers are out of sorts and they're not on schedule and they're not in their rhythm and they're forced to do things that are outside of what they game plan for at sometimes, it starts to get harder and harder for them to generate offense. And I'm thinking back to that 2021 last season game against the Rams, but they weren't down 8+ in that fourth quarter when Jimmy threw them back into, on that last drive, right? Like they were down 7. So think about that.
Right.
The Niners were down 7. They tied it, and then they won that game. But because it's 8+ points,
That's not going to
It
show up.
moves the net. Yeah, right. Like that's the definition of like cherry picking. That is the definition of cherry picking right there. Oh, wait a minute, not that game. Let's do 8 now. But if it was 8, they were, oh, not that game. Now let's do 9. Right? Like so there is a little bit to the idea of you picking where you want this stat to start and not objectively looking at other things. But yes, I don't know, Brad. I can't quantify this one because he's so good at understanding what defenses are doing. He's so good at switching in the middle of games and saying, okay, this is what you're doing. This is what we're going to run. But for some reason, when it gets to 8 points, which seems to be the magic number because everybody forgets about, the other game that it was like 7, it's harder and harder to quantify why this can't get done, especially with this explosive team.
Yeah, absolutely. I did just post a video about it, but I will talk about it right here because of our awesome super chat. So, remember, I brought this up in the post game. I was like, we saw the graphic. I was like, man, is there something to this? Because when you look at 0-38 when down by 8+ points in the fourth quarter, that seems like a problem, right? Like that seems like an issue, like where we're building a case right now for the 49ers to have some legitimate issues with that situation. And I was like, but how do you contextualize that? What's the comparisons? How do we figure that out? Shout out to Mike Sando for putting this out to kind of contextualize. I'm going to drop the super chat so we can see the whole thing. If you go down this is regarding the 49ers being 0-38, down 8+ points in the fourth quarter.
Remember, folks, 8 points is the magic number.
8
Not
points.
7, 8 points. 8.
And the first point, all teams who have found themselves in this situation, down 8 in the fourth quarter, have a 7% win rate, meaning the total times that all the teams in the NFL have only won in this situation 98 times, but have lost 1,337 times with 4 ties. That right there, I was like, oh, thank God. That kind of contextualizes
Nobody has a good record in this
0-38 thing. Kansas City has the best win percentage. They're 6-14 in this scenario because of who?
I'm here.
I wasn't ready.
I couldn't resist. I could not resist. I could not resist.
That was so good. I wasn't ready. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. It was better than I could have thought of. Green Bay is next, right? When they're 7-34 in those scenarios. Those guys as quarterbacks over that time are two of arguably the best to ever play the position. Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, two of the biggest game-changing quarterbacks we've ever seen grace our game. Are you shocked? But even then, their win percentage is not great. In third place, it's Seattle with 1-38, Carolina 1-58, Indianapolis 1-36-1. And then in fourth is Baltimore 2-22, Dallas 2-37, New England 3rd-35. And the fifth point being no one wins these. And it helps when you have a good drop back passing game. And lastly, the 49ers don't have a right off the rip great
straight drop back guy.
Yeah, they just don't have that. And like to your point, they're rhythm-based offense that is predicated on play action, running, screens, getting in and out of different looks. They don't just go spread and go play backyard football like sometimes they do. So I'm thankful that I saw that to kind of just bring it up and bring it back to this super chat. Everyone is not good in that scenario. So it's very easy to single out Kyle and be like, oh, look at Kyle. And but at the end of the day, everyone suffers in that scenario. So it's not just Kyle. It's a cherry.
Not an ideal. It's not an ideal situation to be in. But remember, folks, if they're down 7, they have come back in those games. But remember, it's 8 is the magic number. A little bit of cherry picking going on here as well.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm glad that Mike Sando put that out because that put my mind at ease about that. I was starting to get like concerned about that, just like everyone else was. Lyle says, why do you hear after 5-6 games that the Niners look tired? Is it because they are an older team?
No, I think again, going back to that 3 game stretch, we discounted the fact that they had to travel so much and they were like missing rest days. I highlighted that. I want to feel like during that time when the 3 game stretch was happening, that they were behind on rest days, that every team that they were facing was coming off of bye weeks. It's not an excuse. It's not a reason why. But yeah, that's why Kyle Shanahan said during that stretch that they looked like they were playing a little bit slow. Monday night, you've got to fly all the way back to the West Coast from Minnesota. And then you've got a Bengals team that had an extra day's rest coming in, and they look healthy, right? Joe Burrow looked the best he's probably looked in his entire season in that day. Again, facing teams off the bye, it's no excuse, but the 49ers lead the league in like rest days behind everyone else. So guys are a little bit more healthy. This team has to travel a lot. They have a lot of primetime games because they're a primetime team. Not an excuse, but let's not discount the fact that they've got to travel so much and how that jet lag it wears on the body. Think about us. We go on a flight and we go across the country. When you get back, all you want to do is get in your bed. Imagine a football player who has to like get right back up and then just get back out there and start physically working again. Not an excuse. They get paid a lot of money. But think about you if you flew from one side of the country to the other. Your body's not right. You're a little bit off. You went through time zones. That's a normal person. Can you imagine someone who
Football's
just
a
got off of a
grind,
flight?
man. Football
Right.
is a grind.
Let's imagine a person who just had the effect of a car crash on their body, now going through that jet lag, and then just having to get back and keep going. It's not an excuse. It's the NFL. Those guys get paid a lot, but let's not discount it because I think that's where it was a little bit more.
Yeah, man. Football's a hard game. It's now year round. It used to not be that way. These guys are basically taking a couple weeks off after the season and then they're grinding. It's a lot mentally, it's a lot physically. I didn't think they looked tired personally. I just felt they looked off. But I didn't my takeaway wasn't they were tired. They just looked off. Tony says, how does Jason Verrett play versus Ravens, and how well
How
will
did
he
he play?
play? How did he play? How well versus Washington?
So essentially, the plan was Kyle said he wanted to mix him in regardless. But then Ambry Thomas suffered a bit of an injury, and then he was able to return in that game, which is probably good news. I think the one play that he scored a touchdown was a little bit of bad luck because it was Lamar extending the play, and Aguilar realized the scramble drill was on, gets to the pylon, Lamar puts a seat on him, right? And
Yeah.
it's not me saying, oh my goodness, Jason Verrett is cooked. Remember when Jason Verrett came into the game in 2019 against the Pittsburgh Steelers? They threw him out there. The first play, they attack him and
Touchdown.
he's burnt. That's not the same
Touchdown.
thing in my opinion. That is not the same thing in my opinion, right?
No, not even close.
Think about how long he hasn't played football, and then just that situation. That's another tip your cap moment to Aguilar, who understood what was going on in the play. Scramble drill, get back to the pylon. What they teach you as a receiver is when your quarterback gets on the move, come back to the quarterback, get close to him, and make him and make yourself available in the end zone. You want to make sure you stay in the end zone and not get out. Credit Lamar Jackson, credit Nelson Aguilar on that one. Verrett just had to cover for too long.
Yeah. He broke outside the structure of the play, escaped into the pocket, or escaped into the flat, and Aguilar broke off his route, and that's why he looked so open. It was off schedule play. That I thought Jason was in good coverage
He was.
until he broke out, and
Yeah.
then anything can happen.
That could have
in
been
situation.
that could have been anybody. That could have been Mooney Ward. That could have been Jalen Ramsey. Any of them. Like in that moment, that was just what the receivers taught, which is break back to your quarterback on a scramble drill. And Lamar recognizing that once he does break back, I'm letting this thing go, and he put good velocity on it. And there's nothing that Verrett could do. There was nothing any cornerback could have done in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I would obviously cornerback, wide receiver, or excuse me, cornerback O line have a lot of similarities. I would liken it to an offensive lineman having to block someone for past 6 seconds, and then a sack happening, and then the people being like, "Oh, well, look at this offensive lineman, he's trash." And it's like, no, he did his job. The
The ball's
quarterback held the ball too long.
like you're supposed to, you're supposed to be
Yeah.
able to get there, like, or the ball's got to be out. The
You got 3
correlation between
seconds, and that's
max.
generous. That's
Yes.
generous in the
Very.
NFL.
Yep.
So the fact that you're having a guy in coverage 5, 6, 7 seconds, that's it's not on him necessarily.
Right.
Yes, did it happen to him? Of
Yeah.
course, but when you're breaking outside of structure and you got guys like Lamar, you just kind of be like, all right, well, that was unfortunate, but
Yeah.
we can at least contextualize it. People don't
100%.
contextualize because they don't know football. But
And I think he'll be fine against Washington if he's put in there. I think, you know, I'm not certain if Jahan Dotson's been playing. I'll be honest, I really don't pay attention to them. You know, I looked up on Sunday, and they were losing 21-0 to the Trevor Siemian led Jets, and then they make a quarterback change to Jacoby Brissett, who'll be starting. Then all of a sudden, they're back in the game, and it's just, are the Jets bad? Are they bad? Yes, yes. So I mean, I think he'll be fine. I think if there's any game to have him out there and get his legs under him, this might be the one.
yeah, so I'm not. I have people. I posted something about Verrett on Instagram, and our own fan base started trashing the dude. I'm like, dude, you guys are
Well, weren't
idiots,
we just
man.
happy that
Not
he was here?
everyone, not
Yeah.
everyone, just the people like literally taking shots. I'm like, dude, you don't even know. You don't even know what. Oh, he got burnt. He got cooked for a
He
touchdown. I'm
did
like,
not. He did not.
did he though? Did
No,
he
he
get
didn't.
cooked, or are
He
you an
didn't.
idiot who doesn't know what the hell you're talking about?
Go off, Brad. That's usually me that says
Ah,
stuff like that. But
dude.
as a board member of the coalition of Jasons, leave him alone, man. Leave Jasons alone, man. All Jasons matter.
All Jason's better. Nice. Keith Murphy says the Browns and Ravens specifically have personnel that most teams do not. I think we'll be
Thank you.
fine in the NFC.
Thank you. Thank you. The AFC North somehow has become the place that the 49ers don't want to go. They're 1-3 against them. The only win that they had was against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I don't know if you guys know, the AFC North, regardless of records, but if you look at those rosters, it's probably the most competitive division in football. I mean, the Browns, when they're healthy, are no joke. Look what they're doing with Joe Flacco. The Bengals are a team that comes off of a Super Bowl appearance, and they were in the AFC Championship the year before. The Baltimore Ravens are the Ravens. Hell, even the Steelers find a way to never be under 500 under Mike Tomlin. Maybe it's time to give the AFC North some of their credit as well, too.
That's always been a different brand of ball. They always it's a throwback division. They really are just tough, hard-nosed teams. That's just how they've always been. And when you have those teams in that division, like you mentioned, they have to compete with each other. So they're all just constantly trying to one up each other, which makes the entire division continue to rise. Like when we see at times when the West is cooking, the NFC West, when you have good 49ers teams, good Seattle teams, good Rams teams. Cardinals have been kind of trash for a while, but they're all trying to compete with each other. They're all trying to match rosters and do all those different types of things. So yeah, I think the 49ers are still the top of the class in the NFC. I'm not tripping off that. Roberto says, "Fear not, one seed still within reach. Let's effing go." Yeah, the 49ers
And
still in
that's
the
what we
spot.
that's what we talked about going into this Ravens game. Like, they don't have to win this game, but you'd really like it because it's a measuring stick game. But handle business, man. Take care of the Washington football team. I refuse to call them the Commanders because it's stupid. They should have kept the other one.
They really
And then wait, there is a scenario I believe that the 49ers can get into the number 1 seed. I just don't know exactly what it is. But again, it looks like it's going to come down to them beating a Rams team. That makes me a lot more nervous than they should. But just take care of business. Win your next 2, and then this game behind us is a blip on the radar.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, well said. Niner Empire says, when we had the chance to pull within 1 score and Kyle held everyone back, I wasn't worried. He didn't want to risk health for bragging rights. We're good. What are your thoughts on Brock not re-entering the game? All that kind of stuff.
I think it's absolutely smart. You look at the way that offensive line was holding up. Why would you put him out there if that stinger was already bothering him from Arizona? I think right there, it's a no-win situation. I think that's absolutely the right call, right? Especially the way the night was going. I think if you put him back out there and he gets hurt, everybody's screaming at Kyle, right? So I think he understands that the season hinges on Brock Purdy's health. And you realize, hey, Trent Williams is not there. We got to move McKivitz over to the left. Spencer Burford is playing right tackle. This isn't exactly ideal. And even when
Barch at left guard.
Right. And even when the line was healthy, they were having fits trying to stop this Ravens team. I think it's absolutely fine. And then what the Ravens were doing, because I want to stop out one more narrative, and I know it's a small minority, but while we're here, oh, Sam Darnold looked good in it. No, the Ravens were allowing everything in front of them, saying go methodically. They did not want to give up any explosive plays. That completely changed. It was close enough as you can get to prevent defense. Sam hit throws, yes, but stop it. Don't even start. Don't even start. And anyone who wants to use that to knock down Brock Purdy, just shut up.
Now we're getting spicy.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
now
talking
that's it.
about.
That's not respectfully cooking. That's just if you believe that Sam Darnold will have the same success as Brock Purdy in this offense, just shut up.
Yeah, no, I second that. That's crazy. And I mean, I'm not trying to sit here and talk crap on Sam. He did spread it around a little bit. He got the touchdown
Look
to
good.
Ronnie Bell, but then he
Yeah.
threw a interception into quadruple
Yes.
coverage.
I think what's worse than the interception was because it's fourth down. You got to throw the ball anyway. Is
Right.
taking that sack. That was far more egregious. Like you cannot lose that many yards when you're on the one. That's quarterback instinct. That's IQ, right? Like that has to
Yeah.
be the last thing that you can do is take a sack right there. That was the one that bothered me far more than a play on fourth down where you have to throw the football anyway and give somebody a shot.
Yeah, 100%. Brian says, "My bad, just got in here, but what did you guys make of Purdy's poor play on him or the O line? What is your
Some
take?"
of it, some of it Purdy, some of it Line, some of it Baltimore. All of it combined is what you get right there, right? Like, you have the first interception that I believe Purdy's a tick late. Kyle Hamilton breaks on the ball. That's an interception you can't have. We talked about
Mhm.
the interception bouncing off of Stevens' hands. That's just an instinct play because if he's not there and that ball gets through Stevens, Debo has nothing but 30 yards in front of him and he probably runs through whoever's trying to tackle him and maybe we have a touchdown right there. You look at the other play in which Purdy throws the ball to Kittle. Saw people blaming Kittle, saw people blaming Purdy. I think it's all around. And I think, again, Baltimore did really well. Baltimore's personnel, they got dogs on each level, right? Like, so it's a little bit of Purdy, a little bit of O-line, a lot of Baltimore's defense. All of that mixes it together, and that's the result you get when you play poorly and you penalize yourself.
Yeah. I honestly didn't feel like Purdy played all that bad considering the stat line, considering he threw
Yeah.
4 interceptions and all those different types of things. He still made some good throws. Like he was
Yeah.
still dotting them up. Um, Again, there was no rhythm with the offense. And again, credit the Ravens. That's partly due to them. They played a hell of a game. And the 49ers they got out. They just got outworked. I guess that's the only way I could say it.
Out
Like
executed, out coached at certain
out-executed,
times. It just happens. It just happens.
and the
It's the
ball didn't
NFL.
bounce.
And
Yeah.
And it's at least it's the Baltimore Ravens. At least it's them. If that happens against the Arizona Cardinals, you're far more concerned. That's a very good football team over there, and that's why everybody believes that they have a shot to be in Vegas at the end of this season in February. So again, tip your cap. Move on. Just tip your cap.
I see someone in the comments saying Kyle can't do anything without being criticized. To be honest, he's rarely praised, and it's sickening. Um, Kyle's going to be like that until he wins a Super Bowl. And I had someone make a comment, I think, on one of my Instagram posts talking about Purdy and just kind of the narratives kind of surrounding Purdy and just how crazy they are and how they change week to week. But he made a reference to Stephen Curry in the sense of Stephen Curry was gaining his notoriety and praise. Again, he signs his contract after having 2 bum ankles, one of the all-time greatest ROI deals of all time. Just the return on investment that the Warriors got out of that initial deal. He goes, they win the rings, they do the thing organically. They add Kevin Durant, boom. Any good thing that Curry's ever done out the door. And since then, they won more rings. And it was, KD's carrying them. Steph's just this glorified whatever shooter, blah, blah, blah. But the point being is it took Curry, I think winning was his fourth or
Mhm.
fifth ring.
The one without KD.
With the one without KD to get the unanimous praise and like, all right, he's that guy.
Yeah.
And then someone asked the same question about how long did it take Tom Brady to get that unanimous type of he's the GOAT. Him winning a Super Bowl in Tampa, his 6th Super Bowl.
That's crazy.
So
I
then
would have
I'm
thought it
like
was before
thinking
that.
you know what? We're going to be doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing this for a long time. Even if he wins a Super Bowl, what are they going to say?
Yeah. Well, he
The
was
what?
carried. I mean,
It's the coach.
anybody could coach CMC and Debo and Ayuk and Kittle, and yeah, like it's just the goalposts will always move. They'll always
Yes.
move. And they'll never. Nobody will ever give anybody the proper flowers until they're gone. Until
Right.
they're gone, really. I don't think during the time that we're here, like a lot of people praise people because there's always going to be an argument and pushback. I wish social media was around during Michael Jordan's time so they could say that Pippen helped carry him and oh well, Phil
Rodman.
Jackson running the triangle, and like there's always going to be counter arguments, but sometimes the most obvious answer is right there in front of you, and it's just I
Yeah.
just think it's funny.
So the point being is, it's just going to kind of contextualize. Like, people are going to be talking about Brock Purdy for a long time,
Oh
even if
yeah,
he won the Super Bowl this year. So
yeah,
I guess, as the sooner we realize that, the sooner it is what it is. It's the draftism. It's the
yeah,
thing that you've talked about all the time. Him being the last pick. People are just waiting for the shoe to fall and him be the last pick. They
hmm,
can't wrap their mind around the
yeah,
fact that he's playing better than every quarterback that was in that draft class in front of him, and even other quarterbacks in other draft classes,
right,
including the one that was drafted onto his team.
yeah,
So, it's going to be ongoing. So it is what it is. Makes for good content for us.
hmm.
Lyle says, if the Niners do make the Super Bowl, which team would you want to face and why? Teams are Ravens, Browns, or Bills. What do you think?
This is gonna sound stupid, but the Browns are being quarterbacked by Joe Flacco, and I'm just like seeing the helicopters go across my eyes. And this is gonna sound even more silly. If the Bills make it, then they've completely turned their season around and got hot and been that team that like rolled in. The
Yeah,
Ravens have been the most consistent.
yeah,
So if the Browns or the Bills make it, the Browns are on this like historic run because they've got a better record than the Kansas City Chiefs right now. And then who's their quarterback? And then if the Bills make it, the Bills have completely turned their season around and they flipped a switch, which is scary.
yeah.
So I think I lean the Ravens. Just because they've at least been consistently the best team and you kind of know what to expect. I don't know what to expect when Joe Flacco drops back. I don't know what to expect from a Bills team that all of a sudden found their way and have Josh Allen and have Stephon Diggs. So I might be wrong here, but in this moment, I would probably say the Ravens.
I I might have to say the team that has the worst defensive line, because when I look at the Browns, I look at their defensive line and they created problems for the San Francisco 49ers. Like, Myles Garrett is a problem. Ravens, we just faced them. I got a lot of respect for the way their defensive line played against us. The Bills, we haven't played against them yet. I do know they have some talent over there, but as much as the Browns or the Ravens, not really sure. But I think for me, like, me, I'm a big starts in the trenches guy. And with some of the concerns that we have on our offensive line, I want our offense to be able to move. And so if that means having to face Josh Allen, and go Josh versus Brock, maybe. I hear your point too. This is a tough question because
One more, one more
the
thing,
Browns are
Brad.
playing well too. And that's
One
like
more thing, Brad.
typically, yeah.
One thing we're forgetting. Jim Schwartz is the defensive coordinator for the Browns. And
I
he's
know.
done very,
He's got
very well
Kyle's
against Kyle
numbers.
Shanahan. He has. I do not. Joe Flacco, Jim Schwartz, stay as far away from
Get
Vegas.
away. Stay
I
away
get
from us.
away. Get away. Joe Flacco right now is writing a movie that's going to be corny and on Lifetime and on Hallmark, and I hate it. I don't want to see it. I'm scared to death, man. I don't care. Color me scared. This man just helped Amari Cooper put up a historic day on Sunday. A historic day. What is going on in Cleveland, man? It is so weird.
Yeah, this is a tough question because I think all of them pose their own individual problems. Obviously, you look at the Browns. Oh, they don't have a quarterback, and it's like, well, they've always had a defense, and that's kind of what carried them to this point. And they finally have a quarterback who can at least operate the offense now, like a veteran, and they're winning games now as a result. And Flacco still got it. So, yeah, this is a tough one. That's a tough
Man,
one.
Flacco.
I'm not familiar enough with the Bills game. I'm just thinking, like, I don't want to play a good defensive line because that could create a lot of problems for the 49ers. So
Well,
I don't know.
and
I
the
wouldn't
way
mind. I wouldn't
yeah,
mind seeing the Ravens again. Like, give me the
yeah.
Ravens again. Let's see what we
I
do
want
when
to
we run it
I want
back.
to run it back with them because at least we have that. The Browns and the Bills making the Super Bowl, it gives you that scary feeling of like a team of destiny because of how they are, right? The Browns
Yeah,
would be doing it with a journeyman elite quarterback, and then the Bills would have completely turned their season around because they were cooked weeks ago, right? Like everyone was just out on Josh Allen, everything. Now all of a
yeah.
sudden they're stacking wins and they're coming back to the pack. So if the Bills make it, then they're on a hot streak and they've knocked off the Ravens most likely. They scare the hell out of me, and so would the Browns. They both of these teams would have to beat the Ravens to get to the Super Bowl, and that scares the hell out of me. Keep me away from those teams of destiny. Keep me away from those hot streak teams. I don't care if the Ravens make the Super
Good
Bowl.
point.
It's not going to surprise many people. If either of
No.
these two teams make it, it's because of something historic or some team of destiny crap. I don't want that. No.
Yeah, no, that's a good point because if the 49ers Ravens meet in the Super Bowl, the narrative is MVP Lamar Jackson. It's going to be Ravens are the best team in the league. They already handled the 49ers.
And the Niners
Um,
will be dogs.
yeah, and they will. And we saw like how motivated the Ravens were by being underdogs, according to Las Vegas. So yeah, I think it might be Ravens, man. I think it might
Yeah.
be Ravens because I know they didn't get the I know for a fact after watching that tape, they didn't get the 49ers best shot. So
No.
and even so, the fact that it was 16-12 under those circumstances at half, there's more to that game than we saw. So great super chats, by the way,
Oh yeah.
from everyone. We got one coming in here too at the buzzer going with 84 Super Bowl rematch 49ers versus Miami. The
That's so many layers.
to a Purdy Bowl.
So many layers. The 49ers getting revenge on Tyreek Hill, Coach Mike coming back. Hello, Raheem Mostert. Hello, Jeff Wilson.
River
I think
Craycraft.
River Craycraft, baby. I mean, the unsung legend from 2020. I think that game is so fascinating based
Yeah.
on the matchup problems that Miami presents and how similar things are between Coach Mike's scheme and what Shanahan runs. Guys kind of know each other. It would be great for Coach Mike and Kyle to meet, right? I think that adds another layer to it. And my God, man, covering the Super Bowl and being able to ask questions to Mike McDaniel, I can't think of anything better than that because the answers are going to be incredible. That entire media week is going to be fun. I would love this, but Miami has a problem beating winning teams, even though they just beat the Dallas Cowboys. But again, they're the F word, the Dallas Cowboys. So, but I don't know if they have the mettle to go into Baltimore, to maybe go in even Buffalo, right? Like a divisional game, right? Can you get over the hump against these winning teams? And again, to the point about the Browns and the Bills, Miami would have to like run through some really good teams, which starts to give you that destiny vibe. And then you've got Tyreek Hill, who's like a menace, and how do you slow that down and how opens everything else up? It would give me a lot of pause. I mean, obviously, I would pick the 49ers in that game, but I would be far more. I'm nervous about that team that everybody is kind of just pushing aside, all of a sudden just getting hot, right, and getting into into a groove. Because Miami's not going to get the bye, so they got to win a wild card, divisional, and AFC championship. Most likely, they're going to go on the road for two of those. If they can do that and sneak into the Super Bowl, not sneak in, but bust their way through, oh God,
Mhm.
that makes me nervous because of just who they are personnel wise. And do you have that team of destiny vibe thing? Because that just is so weird to me. Like you can't quantify it. Like for instance, in 2012, when Joe Flacco throws that pass and the Denver defender puts his hand up and it goes over his head to Jacoby Jones and they score at the buzzer and it's Ray Lewis's last season, I went, oh no, something's weird here. Oh no, because that shouldn't have happened. And it's Ray Lewis's last year and the scriptwriters are in their bag. I get
Mhm.
nervous about these team of destiny teams and how they get into the playoffs or how they get into the Super Bowl. That's I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, I hear you. But whatever it is, we're talking about Super Bowl, and like that's
Yeah,
the main point. It's like
I think
we're still really good, guys. Like for everyone
yeah.
who's like freaking out and oh, we've been exposed. Like,
Overarching theme,
we
told
have
you,
not.
the 49ers are fine.
Yes, we're good. We're good. So
Yeah.
hopefully, at least what we could have provided for you is a continued therapy session, which is kind of
Yeah,
what this whole week has felt like, because obviously there's a lot of emotions tied to that game being on Christmas and all that, and the way they lost. A lot of people are upset about it, and rightfully so. But at the end of the day, what our job is to do is try to evaluate what we saw and project it out. And what we're seeing is we evaluated it, and what we're projecting out is that they're going to be fine. This wasn't a
yeah,
fatal game in any sense. It just was a bad game. And what the 49ers are going to do moving forward is get back on track and correct it. And
yep.
starts next week against the Commanders on the road. And then they're back home to face a really good Rams team. And then hopefully at that point, we get a first round bye. And then it's 2 games before the Super Bowl. So we're still in good spot, guys. We got a super chat right here
Absolutely.
at the end too. Not worried at all about the loss. Niners will bounce back. I will never give up on Brock. I always believed in him. The team will turn it around. I
I
agree.
don't even think there's nothing. I don't think there's anything to turn around. I think this is something that if it was a continued like
That's a good point.
if it
It's
you
just
know
a
like
bad
if it
game.
was yeah if it was a continued trend, that's something you have to turn around, right? Like the Bills have to turn around their season. The Niners don't have to turn around their season. The Niners have a chance to be 13-4, which is what a large amount of people predicted. 13-4 is still 13-4. It doesn't matter how you stack it, how you lose. You got to take care of business. I'm not worried about that loss either. More feels like an outlier, the exception to the rule, and you just tip your cap. It's the NFL. It happens. I already went through a bunch of the Super Bowl teams that have lost to inferior teams. The 49ers didn't lose to an inferior team. They lost to a team in their tier, and that's completely different. Now, if
Yeah.
they face that team in their tier, then it's for all the marbles. But I don't think that there's many other teams in their tier, including whoever is in the NFC.
Yeah. I agree. They had to turn it around after the bye, but
That's when they had to turn it around.
there's
That's
nothing to
different. That's
turn around
completely
right
turning
here.
the season around. Yep.
Yeah, they know who they are. This was a fluky game. They know where the mistakes happened, and right now it's just about getting healthy, right? I think that's the biggest thing. It's not
Yep.
necessarily turning around. It's like, oh, all right, let's make sure we get healthy heading into the tournament. So, yeah, we talked about a lot. I think, 49ers are in a good spot. What do you have any other kind of last talking points? Anything else before we get out of here for the day?
No, I mean, I hope that the stuff that I presented with personnel and scheme, and the whole Ravens left the game plan for everybody else. I hope that puts your mind at ease a little bit more. Just a quick recap of that is not everybody can do what the Ravens do because the Ravens have such great players at all levels. How many teams have that? How many teams run the things that they run? Not many. And the ones that do aren't good on defense. So you're going to ask another team like the Dallas Cowboys, who have a very strict scheme under Dan Quinn, to change up what they've been doing all season and slow down the 49ers. I don't think it's feasible. So let's knock the game plan one off. Let's knock the loss off as well, too, as I've gone through. How many Super Bowl winners have lost to inferior teams and still found a way to win the Super Bowl? This team is fine. This is a one-game thing. Make sure you contextualize it that way. You can be upset. I'm not telling you how to fan, but please, there is no way that I looked at this game, especially after I watched it a second time, and said, oh dear, the 49ers are in trouble. You can't turn the ball over 5 times. You cannot penalize yourself with 100 yards. And the plays are all there still on film to be made. They just weren't
Mhm.
made. It wasn't their day. That's all.
Facts. Absolutely. Well said. And shout out to everyone for joining us on State of the Franchise. Again, it was a rough day on Christmas, but it's, hey, the Ravens grinched us, but it's not the end. The 49ers just hit a little speed bump on their way. And honestly, who knows? Maybe it could be a blessing in disguise. Maybe it could have been the refocus they needed. Maybe, not being the quote unquote hottest team, from a outside perspective heading in isn't necessarily the worst thing. Maybe as long as they're firing on all cylinders internally heading into the playoffs, that's the best case scenario, like we talked about. So shout out to all you guys. You got anything else you're cooking up the rest of the week? State of the Franchise, Sprint Ride Option, or excuse me, Niners Nation, Sprint Ride
Yeah.
Option.
Yeah, for you guys, the article I just posted in God, man, words are hard. In context with those teams that have lost those games just went up. It's a survey on Niners Nation. Does your outlook change on the 49ers winning the Super Bowl after this loss? I think I provided some solid data points to tell you that it's not that way. So make sure you check that out. Same old stuff. Niners Nation every single week, every single day, every week. True. Spring Red Option was a little bit on hold. I had a bout of sickness. Andrew had a bout of sickness. Now we were supposed to do that tonight. He's not feeling too well either. So don't trip. We're definitely gonna have a preview, I believe, on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, just stick with the channel. Make sure you subscribe to my channel for level-headed analysis at times, and sometimes me just yelling like a moron. So yeah, whatever you guys are into.
Shout out to Spicy Aponte. We got respectfully
A
cooking
respectful
y'all
cook.
up, Ponte.
A respectful cook was today. That's it. Sometimes you got to be spicy, but respectfully spicy today was the way I was. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a good one. Shout out to everyone as always. Appreciate all you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe to both channels. And we will be back next Wednesday for State of the Franchise as the San Francisco 49ers
And
get
post game,
ready.
right?
And post game as we get
Yeah.
ready for the Super Bowl run right in front of us. So appreciate all you guys. We're out of here for now. I'm Brad. That's Jason. Peace. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now.